What you just saw was an entire year of progress, culminating in what you see before you. The culmination of a year's worth of progress. Bear witness to it within the 20x20 World Tour. Anyways, hello everybody, it is DeanSpillaBean back on your screen, back on the world for probably the last time till I get into a Season 2 scenario, whenever the major release of the Satisfactory comes in. Anyways, the 20x20 World is a single factory within the desert region. The challenge is to specifically build the entire factory within a 20x20 foundation grid that we can actually see near the bottom. It is laid out by these red foundations. Everything within this cuboid area is the only place where I can put any type of power generation or manufacturing. Anything else is pretty much free game, but anything that involves generating power or manufacturing items has to be made in this 20x20 area. Of course, there's no height limit, otherwise this wouldn't be a really interesting build, but there is some kind of limit up there, and I'll get to that later. The build itself is kind of split into several different layers of manufacturing, kind of depending on what I felt like doing at the time. And there's a lot of mishmash stuff all over the place. Some things don't really make sense, but no other place to start than the main sorting room floor, where I have a bunch of major resources all sorted into a bunch of different containers. Not every single item is present on this floor, and that's mostly because the factory doesn't actually make every single item. It makes just enough stuff for me to get to the space elevator completion. Oh, also, the space elevator itself is in the very center of the base, which I have a hole that goes all the way through the entire base, all the way up to the top levels. And it goes all the way to that top area of the space elevator. So throughout the tour, you will be seeing a lot of this area in particular. The power source of the 20x20 world is 8 nuclear generators clocking in at 200% power, utilizing enough water to get that done. This was originally made as like a 50k watt generator, but unfortunately some weird water shenanigans happened to where I just can't get the water in there, even though I have the amount needed. I don't know why, and I still have to suffer that. So for now, everything's at a 200% capacity. It can go to 250 if I want to, but that's only whenever I have everything turned on. So for the time being, even though it is a massive 50,000 megawatt nuclear generator area, I cannot utilize all of it because the reactors only go to 400 or 400 in order because of water. The nuclear waste is being sent off to somewhere, utilizing patented nuclear drone technology in order to not get destroyed from the radioactivity. The waste is then sent off to a far area of the world, way off to the edge of it, of which I'll explore later. All you need to know is that it's transported to a location near my oil fields that I use. The waste storage that I do have can hold over 3 million units of waste, from 300 to 1,000 hours to fill, depending on how much of my reactors are being utilized. And it can be reconfigured to send the waste plutonium back to the base, as in it's able to at least be rerouted into a drone core that can be sent over here. But for the time being, I don't have plutonium nor the capabilities to do that. It's not that I just don't have the capabilities to make plutonium. I do have the technology to make it. It's just there's a slight problem. I bestow upon you the ladder to the heavens. It's kind of up there. Okay, let's go. So the main problem I have going up this high, even though I can realistically build stuff up here, is the lighting keeps breaking at this height within this version of Satisfactory. And every now and again the whole lighting engine just breaks depending on what height it go to. And eventually, after climbing the ladder for a specific amount of time, of course flashing keeps happening, there's also this weird effect that comes up This, like, extremely thick cloud. So even with the lighting issues that are down there, this cloud itself is gonna stop me from even wanting to go further up. And I'm still climbing. I could probably go... I don't have bars on me, I can't even go higher yet. Eventually, after climbing to a certain point, you start to see some things in the distance. A specific shadow kind of just flying around out there for some reason. And that, my friends, is God himself. Way up in the heavens. Probably, I don't know. Now, exactly how high that ladder actually is, I'm not sure. I think I just like went up and up and up until I kept running out of bars. And it's way higher than where I ended up in my last episode. So if anyone wants to go to heaven, that ladder is an option. Anyways, back down to like reality, I guess. All of the power from the nuclear reactors is getting rerouted to this 60k power storage unit floor with 60,000 megawatts of power here. It is fully capable of running my entire facility for an hour on its own. For the time being, most of my reactors aren't actually functioning right now because I don't want to make unnecessary waste. So most of the time I just run with 2 overclocked 200% reactors. All the power goes to these things, and if I need to, then I activate more reactors to power more of the facility. And as a contingency, I do have all of these fuel generators at the bottom floor here, and I have rerouted everything for these fuel generators to specifically power all of the components needed to get those nuclear reactors running. So, in the event that those reactors fail and all my power grid goes down for some odd reason, I have enough of a self-sustaining fuel line that I can at least jumpstart the reactors back up and restart the entire factory. And in order to actually control all of the functions, I have a breaker system set up here. With this, I can turn off and on specific parts of my factory, depending on if I want more or less power being utilized to making specific products. Everything is arranged from highest priority to lowest priority. I can set in whatever way I want. If I want the nuclear reactor power to actually be connected to my power storage units, or my power storage units even connected at all, depending on if I want to troubleshoot or not. I even have an option of turning off nuclear fuel production as needed, although those are usually left on while everything's left off. Oh, funny quirk. So, as much as I love this factory, it is amazing. You might notice, okay, there is like some stuff going on, but way over here, a lot of machines are deactivated. There's not a lot of movement, and you might have noticed that when I was going around earlier. There's not a lot of movement, nothing's on. Why do I want nothing on? Believe you me, I would love to just turn on everything right now and showcase everything as much as I want. Here's a problem. It's probably a bug that'll only last until the full release, or it could also be a limitation of my processing unit. But generally, with the amount of stuff that I just have in this area that is stacked on top of each other and densely packed, as dense as I can get it, there gets to be a slight issue where if I have too many things going on and all of the machines are running, or a specific number of machines are running, I need to figure out exactly how much exactly, the game just crashes. Fortunately, that's only whenever you're within the center area where the space elevator is, and even more specifically, around... here? No, I think about here is where it starts. Oh yeah, lights. I'll talk about my lighting system in a bit. Anyways, after this floor, anything above up until the battery production floor can crash the game if there's enough things going on. Usually a safe bet is to make sure that my power storage units aren't active. If they are active, that's pretty much a telltale sign that if I go within the center area, the game will crash. So, in order for me to actually go around, and I think during the rest of the tour, I'll try to showcase every floor and have everything running specifically for that floor so that I don't crash the game during the tour. That would be reliable. But while we're at it, nighttime has come and my night light system has activated. I used a blueprint designer in order to make a bunch of these platforms that have lighting on foundations with a huge catwalk system that interconnects with itself without any clipping issues. Even the center has no clipping issues. Oh, and I very much like it. I wanted to have this whole floor be made out of these lights and catwalk systems, but the space elevator hitbox was far bigger than where I could put the blueprint for this, so I'm just not able to. Not only that, but apparently having this many lighting things in general has been causing lag, so I've had to change my visual settings just to make it more tolerable. Although it does come with a really cool quirk that I can just kind of change it to be whatever I want. So I now have a red floor. That just looks cool. I can also make it radioactive. Oh no, my nuclear waste has gone out of control and everything is radiated. It's terrible. As fun as it has turned out to be not very reliable in terms of, I wanted to get a bunch of these lights on the floor so that I can light up my entire factory no matter what time of day it is. But the amount of lighting has been actually hindering my hardware in general, and I just get bad frames, so I just kind of leave it here. Only other lighting systems that I got are on this floor that has a different design that uses less parts and is able to spread more light around, which I probably should have used, but oh well. Well, enough about lighting, as the sun rises once more on the glorious 20x20 empire. Time to actually do a tour, starting with the bottom floor, which underneath has like all of these really unnecessary amounts of foundations, but it kind of gives like a lore reason for why this whole thing is actually able to stand. Over here is my old storage facility that had tons and tons of these storage containers that housed various amounts of items. It still does, and I still come to it every now and again if I just need a lot of a specific item. But I've been slowly dismantling it over time, which this is where it's kind of ended up. Because I just couldn't go about finishing the rest of it off, pretty much. I wanted this to be kind of different, like a huge giant hall, but that ended up being too complicated to figure out how to make, because everything was going to be built in the gigantic 20x20 factory. So having to relocate all of my resources to go all the way down to the storage area kind of was a logistics unnecessity. Anyways, next thing up is this blueprint designer area, and this is just where I make my blueprints. Every single one of them that I have made for the build, I made here. One such blueprint I am most proud of is this 14 smeltery blueprint that compacts together very, very tightly 14 smelteries together. All of the items enter on the right side of it, going into various splitters that send items all throughout every single smelter. There are 3 rows to work with, and I kind of wish I redesigned it a bit more to work better with a at least a 750 a minute line, like 3 of those. But it is what it is. I might redesign it in a different version. But generally, I have several smelters that can be set to whatever I feel like. All of their items are getting redistributed to the front. There's 5 smelters in the front here, with 3 mergers on top that connect all the rest of the smelters out. So every single thing that I want out of it will come out of the front. Everything enters out from the side. This design is very utilized throughout like the top parts of my facility, because that's around when I actually got this thing developed. And it has been very useful to just kind of set up. Also, I'm very proud. It is so densely compact, but nothing, even the cords, if I can see, even the cords are not clipping with anything. And I am very proud of that fact. Closest thing that could even be considered clipping is this little bit of an intersection here with a smelter from this conveyor belt. That's probably it. Everything else is just that tightly compacted. Another blueprint I used a fair amount, at least when making the 60 megawatt battery floor, was a blueprint to actually put all the batteries in place. And this thing's expensive. One blueprint alone requires 5 stacks of over 5 stacks actually, a ton of mod frames, stators, quick wire. It needs a lot. And at the time, my wire factory that I was trying to produce wasn't producing enough wire at the time in order to make enough modules to fit 60,000 megawatts of this. So I had to resort to my stockpile down here of wires that I got and just transferring myself all the way up there, all the way down there, all the way up there, all the way down there. Why not have a conveyor belt do that? That's too many items to transfer. I literally have to, that was annoying. Last blueprint I'll show off, and then I'll get to the rest of the tour, is the storage the storage blueprints that I use for my nuclear storage way off in the distance that I'll get into. Basically, with the amount of units that are here, it is capable of storing millions upon millions of nuclear waste. And my assumption, after calculating how many there are, for my calculations, 1 unit, if it is being filled with nuclear waste at max velocity, can add another 100 hours, or about 94.5 hours, of delay time until doomsday. So every single one of these is another 100 hours. Oh, that's only if everything is being filled at max speed. If it's not being filled at max speed, it could last for thousands, potentially. And my world save is only 473 hours, and I mean, it's not full yet. I checked it sometime earlier, and it is probably a bit under 20% full, something like that. A bit over across from the blueprint area, I have my main coal intake, of which honestly isn't very impressive, and most things outside of the main base itself isn't very impressive. I'm not very good at customizing how things look. I just kind of build things in a mishmashy way, and eventually it looks cool. Some decoration is here and there, but oh gosh, decorating takes eons. All that to say, this is where I get all of my coal. It brings in about 1,500 a minute, coming from a coal truck that is way off in the distance. There you are. This coal truck goes to a median docking station that separates it from the actual coal mining area that is far off to the southwest. Although at some point it started having weird coal intake issues. I don't know why exactly that happened. So I had to expand it a little bit more with some extra drones, and I just have this absurdly long battery line just to go there from my battery. It's very scuffed. But coal is entering the facility, so that's all that matters. Okay, last thing I swear, and then I'll actually talk about the facility itself, is this very long road that's whole entire purpose that connects me to these two quartz nodes over here. And I got a truck that goes to and from those quartz nodes, docks them off here, and then enters the base in order to be turned into crystal oscillators. But yeah, this whole giant road structure that I made a whole blueprint model for is only used to transport quartz, and there's like no other uses for it. Or I guess it's more like I never got around to being able to utilize it for anything else. Yeah, that's a better wording. Okay, that's pretty much major stuff outside of the base. There's a bunch of other areas that I might look at to later. But for now, time to show off some of my factory stuff. So, this area in particular, if I stand right here, you might recognize this on my channel banner that's on my YouTube channel. This is a refined plates factory that I made way back in episode 3 of my series, and I just really loved how it turned out, mostly because I really properly made sure all of the rates were correct, so all of the bars are being produced at the exact rate that's needed in order to be inputted into the constructors at the exact rate, to then go output at the exact rate so that everything is flowing. just flowing. Nothing is being overloaded, nothing is being underperforming. It is just flowing like liquid. I love it. Later on, that method of building stuff has become far too difficult to, not to comprehend, but to manage, because I just end up just throwing everything at the wall and eventually things work out. But this was a time when I really did care about how everything looked. The factory itself has undertaken probably 2 massive remodelings. The first was after I got all of my starting equipment up and running, and then I could rebuild the entire factory with a bunch of other stuff that probably filled up to here in terms of height. But at some point I was like, man, everything's a hecking mess. I'm gonna redo it all and start again. And this is the version that we got so far. Main thing on this floor is the fuel generators that are used to power all of the machines to power the nuclear reactors. All of these fuel generators are getting fuel from a oil train that is transporting oil from a specific oil field to all of these overclocked refineries and outputted into a tank that is then redistributed to the generators. Also, every single one of these generators are fully overclocked, producing a few thousand megawatts. I forgot. Let's see, there's 18 multiplied by 375, 6,750 megawatts, which is honestly more than enough needed to get the nuclear reactor functioning and have it on their own separate power source. Next thing to talk about is this plethora of storage that I have for empty canisters. It uses the excess oil coming from my oil train, and it is the only the excess. I make sure that I have enough power first before transferring the excess over. But basically, this is where I have all of my empty canisters in order to transport liquids around using packagers. I will say, with all of the rules that I put in place in order to make this a very interesting series, packagers were a very gray area thing. Because, I mean, all they do is just pack a liquid in with a canister and then just allow that liquid to be transported easier. It doesn't really manufacture things, so packagers for me was a gray area, which became more apparent once I got into this massive grid complex, and I made tons of packagers over there that I'll get into later, that transfers all of the water that I need to the reactors. But the main purpose of the packagers on this floor is to transport water from this massive pipeline here that goes all the way to the top of a mountain and packages it up and sends it up top to the aluminum floor in order to be unpackaged there and used as water for the aluminum refinement process. This was more of an experiment to see how much effort was needed to literally package the water and send it up top as opposed to just piping it up. Honestly, it was easier to pipe it up because I actually ended up doing that for the reactors because this was just a bit unnecessary and took up way too much space. So if I were to do it a bit differently, I would probably not do this, but I have plans on my second season. Since I'm not going to be limited by an area, I might try to revisit this as a potential way to fix a lot of water flowing issues that I know of, but I won't know what's viable until the game comes out. But yeah, all those canisters are just used in various water transportation options. Over here is my Fixmas factory setup, of which is no longer running because I don't have any presents because these things don't work unless it's Fixmas, which is weird. Also, you might notice that it's outside of the actual bounding box, because these don't generate anything. They don't manufacture anything. They just make presents appear or something. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, this whole area was specifically for Fixmas products, of which I have a tiny stockpile of, and yeah. Using it, I was able to create well over 100 or so of these trees to make the desert just not as barren, which I kind of like. I kind of like the amount of trees that I put around here. I wish there was more foliage placement options in the game besides just waiting for Fixmas to be a thing. but maybe they might change that later. I kind of hope so. So that is the bottom floor. On to the next floor, of which I'm going to go turn on some buttons. And now for the fun part of trying to figure out which one of these... okay, I'm just going to turn a few of these on. Okay, things are humming to life. This floor is now operational. Hopefully the game doesn't crash when I get to the center. I'm just going to hold my breath. Okay, we're good. And with that, the second floor of my factory is active. Its sole purpose is to generate large amounts of modular frames that are made in this area. But all of the mod frames are coming up to the third level actually, in order to be made into heavy frames. Yes, all of the stuff dedicated towards the second floor, along with things all along the third floor, are made specifically for two max overclocked heavy frame manufacturers. Looking back on this floor, it is very inefficient in my opinion because there's so much stuff dedicated mostly towards the creation of rods that allows it to be created into screws, which isn't the best iron to rod to screw to space efficiency ratio. Which is why the main alternative to making screws is the steel beam into screw one, which just requires one constructor to make 260 of them, instead of a single constructor's 40 a minute. I just never felt like turning it into a steel beam into screw producing floor. That took a lot of time anyway. So, third floor, I got the storage facility over there. I'll get to that in a bit. But the floor is dedicated towards getting the rest of the parts needed for heavy mod frames. These heavy mod frames in particular are being sent off to a ACU production that's straight above, which we'll get into in a moment, but also a lot of excess screws from the manufacturing process is going towards creating some computers that also goes towards the ACU production. The rest of the stuff here, all of this copper, is also dedicated towards the last bits needed here. And I also have a oil refinement location here that makes the plastic needed for the computer manufacturer. This is also where I have my iodine filters and gas filters at. So if anyone goes into the world download and wants to know where my filters are, here they are. I got them labeled for you. Oh. Okay, that almost killed me. So, the storage area of the third floor. What is it capable of doing? Storing items. What would you expect? But the cool thing about the storage room itself is it has a massive auto-sorting tray that has 4 levels going around the entirety of the third floor that all reroutes towards the storage boxes. This is also set up in a way that any excess whatsoever gets sent to industrial containers that then get sent off to recyclers. Other thing on the third floor is my main hub area. I have made a few modifications to it, having a power tower on top that allows me to get connected to a bunch of my other main power lines that go straight off into the far off distance. This is also where I do my MAM research, and I also make equipment, and I craft random things that I need, and also just have random trophies around. This is also where I keep my coupons. Most of the coupons were used for a bunch of these trophies. I can't really make any more tickets. I've kind of hit a plateau when making those. Probably in the next world that I try to make, I'm gonna make sure I can... Do I want to try and get like 100,000 tickets or something? That sounds like an achievement. Also got some hypertubes here, but I don't really use hypertubes in this. They're not slow by any means. It's just sometimes I might want to leave, and since everything's in such a close proximity to each other, I didn't have a reason to go out into the world too much, except to like get things like my train networks up and running. Also, I've had a lot of fun making the train networks, just having all of my trains going through my facility in one way or another. Very fun. Third floor is done. On to the fourth floor. This is where I start going crazy with building as many things as I want. Alright, I'm going to activate these things. Hopefully nothing happens. So, main centerpiece is this massive smelter and constructor factory area that specifically makes wire by turning copper ore directly into ingots that get sent directly into a constructor, directly into wire, that then goes along a conveyor line to 25 different cable constructors. That makes a lot of cables. Also, this looks wacky as hell. But all the cables that are made here are used to make automated wiring that also go towards ACU production. Wait, is that area? That area's not. Oh yeah, because it's on its own line. No! That was a crash. Okay, I'm going to try and be a bit more careful with my positioning, because I at least want to show off the ACU production before I get onto anything else. But yeah, that is one of the many crashes that I need to be wary of if I get too close to the center of my base. Ironically, this 20 by 20 foundation thing, border, whatever, is pretty much a safe zone. Basically, anytime I go beyond here, with all of these things on, is a danger zone. Most of the time, if I get too close, then it probably breaks. Hopefully not. Hopefully not this time. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen for a bit, because I have a perspective to show. Observe! Da-da! Look at all of those machineries, all of the conveyors doing their things. It is a interesting sight, definitely. So, ACU production. Pretty much everything here is dedicated towards ACU. What are they called again? Adaptive control units, okay. And that's a space elevator part in one of the earlier... I am getting too close to the center. Okay. That is one of the space elevator parts, and that all gets sent down a conveyor belt line that goes all the way towards my assembly director factory. Very intensive, I know, compared to everything else. This is where I'm making one of my late game items, and it's very pitiful. I would very much like to make that better, but I don't have the time to. Also, the circuit boards used to make the ACUs are made here, using a combination of sending a bunch of extra copper ingots from below, the quartz from a different area, and just combining them all in this spot. I just really liked how I laid out everything. It's sites like this that I very much enjoy the build, just with like the floors and floors of machines and conveyor belts sending items to and from specific spots. It's sites like these that make me like this world. That's almost everything on the 4th floor. Way later into the game, around episode 16, I went back to this floor specifically to put in my thermal propulsion rocket and mag grav units into production, which actually looks a bit more impressive with how many more things there are. So everything here to actually produce those items is getting sent into these containers, delivered from drones. Where are the drones coming from, you might ask? Oh, up there. Just kind of off of that platform at the top, and I think like another one on some other... I was thinking, you know what, I'm rich, I have like a huge battery floor making tons of batteries a minute. I can afford to just make drones be my conveyor belts. So with all the manufacturing that's here, I have about 5 thermal rockets made a minute, 5 mag units made a minute, 5 assembly directors made a minute, and 12 nuclear pasta a minute. Why 12 nuclear pasta? I don't know, I just want to do pasta different. Of which I'll get to later. On to the next floor, my aluminum production facility. This is where I got even crazier with how I'm building stuff, which I thought that the floor below me was crazy. No, this one's even crazier. And I'm going to turn off the rest of this stuff before I turn on aluminum. Bottled water is being sent from the bottom floor all the way up here to containers, getting distributed to packagers, that then turns it into water, that sends it off into these refineries, that turns water and bauxite into alumina solution and silica byproduct, and then sends the solution over here, combines it with coal, turns into scrap and water extra. Water extra gets piped back into the actual loop here, and it's just enough water that it doesn't back up the system nor overflows it, so it's like in a very weird medium when it's just slightly too little, which I kind of wanted to remake this whole floor because of that very reason. But I was like, well, you know what, nothing's overflowing and I'm still getting like an absurd amount of aluminum anyway, so it's not a priority. All of the scrap is getting piped over here on the side, and thank goodness, I think I'm safe because I am not crashing yet. And they get sent off to this tower of foundries over here, get combining with silica and getting turned into aluminum ingots, of which aluminum ingots get sent over to these assemblers combined with copper ingots in order to make aluminum sheets. And extra aluminum ingots are getting sent over to these other constructors here, creating casing. Over next to the aluminum casing is a ton of constructors turning raw quartz into silica. And this isn't enough silica to actually fuel all of the refineries in there, mostly because the rest of the silica is coming from the other refineries that make silica byproduct, and that gets sent off to those the foundries that were over there in order to make the aluminum ingots. On top of the aluminum production that's here, I also have a bunch of manufacturers for crystal oscillators, taking random resources from around the area, random cables, random refined plates, as well as some quartz coming from that road that goes over to the single node, all into here in order to make the oscillators, which are used in creating some stuff further up. But most things on this floor goes to this area, and I don't have everything down to the main storage room because I've just gotten annoyed of trying to get everything down there basically. But this is where it is. Next floor is the 60k power storage floor with 60,000 megawatts of power just on standby whenever needed. And hold on, this is one of those actions I know will cause problems, but I don't want to get too close for fear of it crashing, but it is a really cool sight whenever all of these backup generators turn on and tons of sparks fly everywhere. But I don't want to crash the game, so on to the next floor, which is my plastic refining floor that is purely made up of 78 refineries, something like that. Using a very compact design in order to fit, like, I think four refineries in a single blueprint. Actually, I could probably just show the blueprint that I used for this floor real quick. So 4 refineries, all very tightly packing the pipelines into this one central line and a conveyor belt line underneath it. This is basically what makes up the entire plastic refinery floor. I forgot exactly how many plastic units that this makes per minute, but I think it's like 300, something like that? Maybe. Although when making the plastic, it makes a bunch of this heavy oil residue, which all of it gets piped over to these overclocked refineries, making petroleum coke, which then gets sent off to a area I'll show off in a moment that converts all of the petroleum coke into steel. I'm going to take a slight risk and try to go into the center of this area, because it does have kind of a really cool sight. My favorite look every time I'm on any of these floors is going in the center and just seeing the monstrosity machinery that I have created over time. It's a sight to behold for sure. So where all the oil is coming from is a train line here that transports several tons of oil from a far off area, really far away. I'll show that in probably after I show off the factory. I'll show off other stuff elsewhere, but I do utilize trains very frequently in order to get items up here easily. And you might have seen like trains passing through several areas every now and again. Yeah, that's what these guys are for. So all the oil gets deposited into the train station here and gets distributed through all this pipework, of which I'm not entirely proud of because some things way off in the distance don't work as well, but it's fine. The next floor is my advanced electronics, which this is where things get very crazy, which I thought the aluminum stuff is where things got crazy, or even the refining room. But I mean, look at all of these conveyor belts. All of those are for copper ingots. So this utilizes a bunch of those 14 smelter blueprints setups that I showed off earlier in the video. I forgot how many it actually makes per minute, but like it's a never-ending flow of copper ingots. A large portion of the copper ingots are sent over to all of these constructors that have a lot of meticulously placed conveyor belts and lifters to make copper sheets, and then the copper sheets get sent a little higher. So the copper sheets all get sent up to here and combined with the plastic from the plastic refinery downstairs and put into this massive field of assemblers creating circuit boards. Circuit boards then get sent off to be combined with plastic, screws, and cables in order to make a ton of computers in some overclocked manufacturers. The cables are being made using these overclocked refineries, and I didn't actually have to overclock them, but I think I needed cables in a different area. But the cables are made because these can convert oil into rubber, and I have a ton of oil on standby. The rubber gets sent over to these assemblers combined with little bits of wire in order to make tons of cables, of which most of them are sent off to create computers, but I also have a small amount of them for these high-speed connectors. Those high-speed connectors then go over to another single overclocked manufacturer that makes supercomputers. And then the supercomputers get conveyor belted all the way down to the lower levels, combined with the automated control units, and make assembly directors that then get recycled. But all that's just a small part of this floor. I also have a massive Caterium manufacturing area. Right, all of the Caterium here gets sent over to the similar 14 smeltery blueprint that I made. That also gets sent off to a constructor blueprint that kind of works similarly, where it has 3 lanes of items that it can filter into, all of which get sent to a bunch of different merger lines and put into storage or other uses. Past the Caterium area, we got this huge array of steel ingot foundries that combines a ton of iron ore that I found just across the world, and a lot of this petroleum coke, or actually just every single bit of petroleum coke from the plastic refining, in order to make a whopping 3,000 steel ingots a minute, of which get distributed through other sections in the upper areas of the base in order to, well, make stuff with them. Only thing I don't like about the entire practicality of the petroleum coke foundries over here is I need a lot of room for recyclers in order to recycle all of the excess coke that I make. But regardless, on to the next level, the second floor that I kind of showed off earlier, but there's other sections that I haven't actually gone over. Mostly the radio control units here, and I think it makes 40 a minute, something like that. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but with the crystal oscillators, computers, and casing coming in, it's pretty much the limit of what I can make. The other machines here in the upper electronics floor are not for electronics. It's actually to make mud frames. Let's see, where is... Oh, here they are. We got up here a bunch of different manufacturers in order to make heavy frames. And of course, most of the steel to actually get the steel pipes and the screws as well, making steel beams, is coming from the foundry area over there. The side section here is combining a bunch of spare copper sheets that I have lying around in aluminum sheets and combining it into heat sinks that get sent up to the upper levels to make fuse frames. This entire area with like the electronics floor 1 and 2, actually I don't even know if there is a floor distinction in this area, but it is the largest place that has stuff in it that's so tightly compact. Well, I say that, but there's like this open aired area, but this place is already dense as it is. Anyways, on to the next floor, the battery floor, where it makes all of the batteries used for the drone ports throughout the world. A huge benefit to having everything in one central location. That also means that the factory is able to make batteries and have the batteries get sent off to drones very close by within the base area, and then go get resources from around the entire world as needed without making complicated train networks. The actual process to make batteries is fueled by drones themselves, which in turn is batteries themselves. It is a very self-contained system that gets power directly from the fuel generators near the bottom, so this will always be working no matter what. And if I recall, the amount of batteries that gets made here is about 300 a minute. And I don't think, no, I'm not utilizing all of the batteries at my disposal. I have room for growth, and I'm not even using all the batteries that I can. But yeah, you might have noticed here and there, drone ports scatter the sidelines. Drones get sent off to different areas across the desert even. There's one for a single iron node. Let's see, and one off in the distance. I think there's another one somewhere. But basically, there's different drone ports around here that transport items directly to the base. This also makes it useful for the nuclear materials, which is going to be the next floor up here for the nuclear reactors. The uranium for the refinement process is getting sent up here by drones, which go... I can't accurately show where it's actually getting uranium from, but there is one area over in the swamp biome nearby. There is another in a forest, and another somewhere over there, I think? Something like that. All of the machines used to actually make the encased uranium cells, as well as the fuel cells, are all connected to the fuel generators down below, so that they only get power from the fuel generators and not the reactors themselves. The reactors are what power the rest of the entire facility, and only about 2 of these are on at all times. The others are inactive as to not produce as much waste. Though, if I were to turn everything on, observe the power spike. I have enough power to last an hour without subsequent power. So, in the case of that, I can just go over to all of my nuclear reactors and turn on ones that were inactive. Of course, this means I'll be making a lot more waste. However, you can see I now have 7.5-ish hours before I run out of power. But even still, I don't have enough. The nuclear pasta factories at the top are probably the one thing draining the most power from me. Which, that makes sense, it's nuclear pasta. But in the case that I need any more power, I can just overclock these things even further. Yeah, there we go, just made some pasta. Look at that drop. This is usually why I don't have all of these on at all times, because I don't want to make as much waste, and I'm kind of wasting power unless that. So, I just turn things off until I have sufficient power for what needs I need. Next floor after the reactors is the motors and fused frames, and also the start of an issue. Observe. Do you see the problem? So, an issue with this area is that it has reached a height problem? Something like that. So, simply put, once I hit a specific height, it just resets the gamma for some reason. Or, I don't know what it's actually doing, I just know the lighting breaks for some reason. It might just be a bug with the current version, might get fixed later. But regardless, this floor makes fused frames using heavy mod frames from below, aluminum casing, as well as some nitrogen gas that is from a train station there that has a train track that goes all the way past the... hold on. Well, I can't see it from here because we're above the clouds. But anyways, past the quartz road that I mentioned some time ago, a bit over to the left there's a nitrogen gas node, and that's where that train's connected to. So the rest of this floor is used to make stuff for the next floor up, mainly to be sent back down in the form of stators and rotors in order to make motors that then go back up and turn into turbo motors. And I kind of like this floor because it kind of goes back to the simplicity that I did in the earlier floors, where I just kind of had everything in a line and everything worked fine. Now when I was making this, I didn't actually have the copper ingots required. I had the steel ingots, that was fine. But where I had all of the steel ingot smelteries down below, I did not have enough copper for this. Which is where another system above, where the nuclear pasta is getting made, has tons of copper ingots getting made and getting redistributed down to here, as a supplemental to whatever's needed. So that copper ingots made, or copper sheets may be made and thrown into the production line. Steel ingots from below also come up here, turn into steel pipes for stators above us, and some others get turned into steel beams that then get turned into screws over here in order to supplement the insane screw cost that is required for the next production up here. Ooh. The copper sheets from below combine with the screws in order to make rotors. The pipes and wire that comes from a Caterium production line that's also over here gets combined with the steel pipes that are next to it in order to make rotors. The rotors then go right back down and turn into motors that then go back up. And what is this? No, that's cooling systems. The turbo motors are over here. I also needed some rubber, so I have some refineries here making that, getting sent over to cooling system production. But I kind of wondered what I should do with the heavy oil waste. So I thought about actually turning it into turbo fuel, since I can like remake it into that. And so far I don't actually get power from turbo fuel, but I do have it packaged specifically for the use of a jetpack. So that's the main use, and any excess just gets recycled in some canisters. Once the turbo motors are made, they go through this storage container and get directly routed to these drone ports that then go all the way back down to the larger drone port at the bottom, and then that actually makes a lot of the end-game stuff that I mentioned some time ago. Honestly, the only thing of any interest here at all is this floor with the insane amount of assemblers, just because of the looks. They just look so cool. This is what Satisfactory looks like. And now for the final floor, the one on the very top, and it's the nuclear pasta production facility. This entire area has three major parts, first of which is a ton of foundries that combine copper and iron ore coming from these two train lines. Now these trains don't actually go to individual nodes out around the map. They actually go down this massive corkscrew and then connect to a bunch of different train networks down below to consolidate all of the ores that they pick up and then send it up here. I'll show that off more once I'm done with this floor. So the amount of copper ingots that's actually getting made in this area in particular is 10,000 ingots a minute. Actually, no, it's 10,600 if I recall right. Kind of interesting thing, all of the copper ingots that's getting made is going along these conveyor belts on every single level, going into these containers here that then get distributed not specifically to the copper powder constructors that are here first. They actually go to all of these storage crates by using a overflow system where it goes directly into the crate itself and then overflows outward. This actually allows me to use the copper ingots that I'm making for specific purposes first, before utilizing it for nuclear pasta. This way, I could legitimately reroute any of these containers to anywhere in the facility, the entire factory, if I need some more copper ingots there. And I know there's like areas down below that probably would like some. I just haven't gotten around to do that. Anyways, excess copper ingots, most of them pretty much, get sent over to these constructors to make a copper powder that then get rerouted all into a couple storage containers that then get rerouted all the way to the nuclear pasta generations. Anyways, there's also this area up top to make pressure conversion cubes using spare radios and fuse frames that I have just kind of lying around, in order to make a bunch of the pressure cubes. Everything gets sent over to the particle accelerators, and an absurd amount of power is consumed in order to make pasta. The entire production line here, specifically to make the nuclear pasta, is probably my favorite part of the recent additions to the factory. Although, as I've mentioned like at the start of the video, I can't go any higher because of this massive thing in the way, also lighting problems, also a massive cloud that spontaneously appears, and God preventing me, or something like that. I don't know what that drone-y thing is there for. But anyways, that's all of the major production lines within the factory. Onto a bunch of miscellaneous outside activities. And I'll start off with a build I'd like to call the Grid. It is a massive train garage, basically, housing a lot of different trains and uses for them. It consists of basically huge cuboid areas, all of them with a power line connection, allowing me to basically have creative flight throughout this entire area. The main use of the grid is to house the water exportation train line here. I say exportation, it's more like an importation, as there's a bunch of plastic canisters that were made over in near the bottom of the base. They go over to these trains in order to supply them with plastic containers. They go all the way over to the side of a beach that I'll show in a moment and come back with tons of water bottles that then get sent higher. All the water bottles from those trains then get sent up here into the unpackaging area. Now, this was kind of an experiment just to see if it would be worth using water bottles in terms of would I rather use water bottles or just straight piping water to get them places. In terms of transportation, you can transport far more water with less trains than when it comes to actually just using normal piping liquid containers for water transport. However, fundamental weakness is that they make a bunch of plastic container byproducts that then need to get cycled back into itself. So it becomes a logistics issue. I mean, I just had to construct the entire grid just to house the construction space, just to even allow this thing to be a thing made. It's not very space efficient, which is why I haven't really done too much with it over in the main base. However, this is a extremely pure hypothetical that I will probably test out in the next world that I do. And that is simply, instead of having packagers in one area and then conveyor belts and pipelines and whatever, and not have to deal with so much logistic issues, what about, instead, we have the packagers next to the refineries, or enough of these packagers next to each other for however many refineries are needed. That way, I don't have as many pipelines coming in, and I still have like a lot more manageable conveyor belts and distribution methods in that aspect, because honestly, items are way easier to transport around than liquids, which is weird to say, but when it comes to liquids, you can't like cross-thread things easy, and you gotta think about the height limits on some things. It's a pain. I want to try that out in the next world that I make, but that will be for some time. Main uses for this water, the right side is mostly just for miscellaneous things, batteries and a couple other stuff, but basically battery production is the water, so it gets turned into sulfuric acid. The other line over here is far more important, as this is what's used for my nuclear reactors up top. I do find it somewhat humorous. I could have put the packagers a bit closer to the base, or even had like an unpackaging system right next to the nuclear reactor section, since I was fine having them here. Yeah, I probably should have done that, but thinking about it, I probably need another conveyor belt line just to get the plastic containers down here, or maybe I could have put the train up there that has the plastic containers in. Okay, that's a lot of thinking. Hindsight's 2020, whatever. Anyways, experiments over. I'll probably do something with the knowledge that I've gained making this in the next world. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, so this whole area on top of the grid is a bunch of different stations housing a bunch of different trains that are connected to this massive train network, of which there are a number of trains that goes along a canyon that finds several different train stations along the way. Iron and copper nodes are being collected and brought up here, and then consolidated into two massive train lines that go up a massive corkscrew to get to the 10,000 ingot a minute production area at the top of the factory. This, in all honesty, is one of my favorite builds that I've been making in like the last few days of me working on the world. I just kind of like the whole corkscrew effect and the train network that I set up. That was a lot of fun. So since there's a lot of train track to cover and a lot of trains going to and from this place, clogging does become an issue. So I have a bunch of these vlog signals in these blueprinted areas, mostly just to help with clogging if something's taking too long. However, supposedly everything should be flowing smoothly, which everything is, which is wonderful. It also, just put it bluntly, helps stop things from crashing into each other. Now, I've got a train to catch. See, I should be able to get on it. No, my train! No! No matter, I shall simply take this one instead. Of all of the other miscellaneous facilities that I have built in the world, probably the water extraction building is the only one that's mostly developed, mostly because it actually has more foundations and looks than any other. That's, yeah, I need to slow down. Darn. That's my fault. But whatever. Anyways, welcome to the water extraction facility. Behold, the field of water extraction. Bunch of water extractors hooked up directly into packagers that then have a bunch of empty canisters getting pumped into those packagers and pumping out water bottles that then gets sent back by a train network back to the 20x20 factory. I believe there's 127 water extract? No, 26? It's a lot of water extractors, and I could go more, but I don't have the capacity to have more. I feel like I should have developed this area maybe a bit further, but I didn't have the time to finish it really. Well, enough of that. Back to the 20x20 factory. There's a couple more miscellaneous things to show. I do wonder though, like in the future, when I make my next world, what am I going to do for transportation? I might actually legitimately go for like power lines and try to use the zipline system to get around easier. Because, okay, as nice as like hypertube systems are, I feel like they're very limiting because you can't leave them whenever you want. So it doesn't make for really good transportation in that sense. That and trains are, okay, they're not consistent either because they kind of come and go when they're not always available. So I need to think about different transportation. What about conveyor belts? Conveyor belts are limited in that aspect too, but you can have them as like a walking way that you can go, and then you can zoom across it. Maybe if you have a jetpack, for example, go on a conveyor belt and just boost yourself in a direction. Yeah, but what about like those hypertube launchers that people make in order to like jump across entire continents? That's an option, definitely, although I don't want to do that because, I mean, I feel like that's too simple. I want to do something a little bit more interesting and complicated. Okay, I'm done talking to myself. On to the next stuff. I believe it is fitting for me to show where everything started. I forgot where exactly the spawn point is within the desert, and it'll probably change later. But one thing led to another, and I eventually landed in this area in particular. I found a pure iron node that has since become just a small piece in the machine that I've been working on. But this was a nice start, and there was a copper node just over there as well. I had some basic machines here, basic concrete, iron, copper needs. And now there's this. That's quite a ways. I must say, doesn't this make for a good wallpaper? Can safely say I haven't seen many other factories akin to that. A couple others, honestly, maybe a lot more thought out. But the incomplete and industrial look that is there, with its innards full on display, I really like it. I love it. I love how it turned out, regardless of whatever issues I have. I love it so much. Alright, up next, I've got to dodge that train, catch this one actually. We're gonna go out pretty far, the farthest away, or I think the second farthest away from the base itself, in order to find the nuclear waste storage area. I must say, I did think on trying to get every single node on the entire map and consolidate it into the 20x20 factory. That would be an interesting, I guess, experiment to mess around with. However, I literally don't have any more room to put anything there, If I were to make an entirely separate factory, probably. But the whole point of the 20 by 20 world factory is that it's just one. And that's the idea. Maybe, okay, more plans for the next world. Try to actually harvest everything, as insane as that may be. Oh, over there is my train station that houses all of the bauxite that's used for the aluminum production. There's nothing much else there. Over here we reach our first junction, and this is where all of my oil is being transported. Or actually, more like it is a checkpoint for my oil, because oil comes from a train station here that goes even further out and just brings the oil to this location as basically a relay. Because as nice as my train system is, there's like no oil for miles and miles, so I have to outsource it to somewhere else. Speaking of, I gotta wait for my train to go any further. Alright, on to the oil fields. Also, I gotta say, I do like this area with how many like arches and architecture built into the landscape there is. I would love to utilize it more, but there's sadly not a lot of actual resource nodes in the area in order to warrant actually doing that. So, that might change in like the full release, it's hard to tell. Oh man, I wanna put my mega factory in the next world somewhere cool. But I'll have to wait until later. Alrighty, we have entered the oil fields. Here is honestly just a bunch of rudimentary oil refinery extractors. Just tanks, get them onto the train, and then send them off. It's not very sophisticated. However, there is somewhere slightly beyond, and we'll have to take a zipline to get there. Due to the remote nature of the oil fields, and an even more remote area beyond the hills here, this is where my nuclear waste storage area is. I even put up like a little warning sign right here. That's when I start getting radiated. Ooh, gosh, it's really it's stronger than it was before. I say stronger than it was before, that might be an overstatement, but as you can see, this is where all of my waste is stored. So how this functions, all of the nuclear waste gets sent off to these two drone ports that then get exported into containers here, get sent through every single one of these containers. They're all interconnected with each other, each connected per row, and they're all filling up slowly but surely. Some are obviously more filled than others, but depending on how many of the nuclear waste barrels are actually exposed, you can kind of tell how many cells are still available. And just going off of a general quick estimate, I say like maybe 15 to 20% of it is full. So I might legitimately have like another 1,000 hours before this gets filled to an unnecessary point. However, I do have a system in place here that allows any of these nuclear waste barrels to get exported to a drone port that does need to get made, but it's at least set up in such a way that all of these containers can funnel into these two conveyor belts, and then the nuclear waste can be redistributed to anywhere that anyone sees fit. Usually me, but we're catching everything moving. But yeah, if I did have more time, I probably would utilize the nuclear waste here and turn it into plutonium fuel. I just simply don't have any more time to spare on this world project. So that will have to wait until another time. A time of which that probably won't happen. Also, I don't know how large that radiation field is gonna get, because I don't exactly remember being that far. I thought it was slightly further away. So I don't even know how dangerous that's gonna get. I mean, even that alone, I was almost running out of filters. I probably should have restocked before coming here. Heck, I should have put a container of those. Yeah, whatever. So, while transportation by train is definitely an option, ever since Update 8 came out and a bunch of these power towers were introduced, very cool towers, by the way, devs, very cool. I feel like this is like a better way to traverse the place instead of using hypertubes, trains, or even trucks in terms of getting from one place to another. Of course, there's hypertube launchers, but this is a really nice alternative. The zipline system, as it's made, is actually connected all the way to my main factory, all the way to the oil fields. It's just as another method to get around. I keep saying this, but I'll probably do something akin to that, this whole system in the next world. I keep saying that. I don't know what it's gonna look like. I mean, okay, I have an idea, as in I'm gonna make it like a massive city. But other than that, I don't have many other ideas to share currently. As it is, the 20 by 20 factory is enough of a city in itself. So making another one is going to be a monumental task. But it's a journey I'd love to go on again. Well, I guess that kind of summarizes the whole world. As kind of a cool treat, I will have a world download in the description for anyone who feels like checking this out. I'll have actual installation instructions for people. Hopefully this works in newer versions as the game gets updated. Or actually, no, the game won't get updated until the full release. Hopefully the full release will still have this work, and probably fix all of the crashing problems. That's the hope. So if anyone feels like continuing where I left off in any metric, I'll be sure to have the world download as an option, and I don't know, you could probably make more 20 by 20 areas in some other spots on the map. This place is massive. I mean, I've only gotten probably the whole desert under my control. Actually, not even the whole desert. I haven't even gotten all the nodes near the top right. Which is silly, because I went everywhere else. Or maybe someone just wants to look at what I've done. That's another option. Both are viable. Other ones that I'm not even thinking of are also viable. Although, definitely a dream and a wish that I have is that a dev finds this as an option and actually gets the world and tries to stress test it on their end in order to figure out, I guess, different optimization options. I don't know. That's kind of a hopeless dream, really. I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Not that it definitely won't, but there's a chance, however small. I'll also have like a user's manual in the world download, just to, I guess, get a general idea of how everything works here. Because this place is absurdly complicated, and this world tour video, while it is very detailed, is kind of a lot to go through. So I'm definitely gonna have like a how-to-use guide for this whole place. I'm also working on a compilation video that tries to take the best bits from all of my 20 by 20 Satisfactory World videos and tries to compile them as best as possible. So it doesn't take like an entire afternoon to watch, and instead maybe a small bit of it. Although it's still going to be a couple hours because it is a lot to go through. I don't know what waits for me next, but I'm all for it, whatever it is. I just hope I'm around to see it. Before I end the video, I got a message for God up there. God, I don't know why you're here, or why you chose this place in particular to just kind of hover about. Maybe it's your throne, I don't know. But regardless, it's been fun. Thank you for hanging out. Alright, back down I go. Also, I don't know why my model is being highlighted like this. Oh well. Anyways, I think that's probably going to be the end of the video. It's been a very interesting time. A lot of stuff has been done for this world, and many more things will be done in the future. Not like immediately, but there will definitely be more things done. And I'm all for it. So to that end, I'm gonna have to say I wish luck to the Satisfactory developers in finishing this game, however long that may take. The game's been quite enjoyable, an incredible pastime and a wonderful experience for me to develop my skills. There's no doubt in my mind that the devs can finish up this game. They seem extremely determined and passionate on it. That, and not much is stopping them. And that's going to be it for the World Tour video. Thank you so much for sticking around this long just for something like this. I started this journey back in 2022 on December 1st, and it's taken me well over a year to get to this point. The only reason I've been able to make something like this is simply because I wanted to make videos for it. I remember a long time ago, I really liked playing Satisfactory, but I wanted to get into video editing, and I had a conundrum. I wanted to do video editing, but I wanted to play Satisfactory. So, to compromise, I started this whole series. It has definitely been enjoyable. A few ups and downs here and there, but that doesn't matter. I got this now. So as a closing, I'll just remind you all, I do have a world download in the description, also have a user's manual, and also just like a detailing of the warning in terms of how to prevent crashes when you're actually using the world. I'll also have a list of like the specs my computer has, because I'm almost certain that the crashes are due to a hardware problem on my end, and it's not much of a software issue, because if that was the case, it'd be crashing all the time. But as much as I love computers, I don't know how they work, I just know how to utilize them. So don't take my word as absolute truth, but yeah, whatever. And if anyone has any other questions about the world, feel free to use the comments section down below. I'd be more than willing to respond to any question anyone has for any reason, no matter what it may be. Well, within reason, of course. I'll use my discretion of how much I want to actually respond to stuff. And with that, that's going to end the video. Thank you all so much for watching, following the whole series, or you're checking out the World Tour video. It means a lot to me that you would even stick around for this long. So that's going to end the 20x20 series. On to whatever's next, however long it takes for the full game to come out. That's it. Good night, everybody. See y'all later.